They said it was impossible. They said the era of independent engine builders was dead. But right now, in 2025, something is happening behind closed doors in Formula One that could change everything. A legendary name. A name that powered 170 Grand Prix victories. A name that made champions out of underdogs. A name that defined the golden age of Formula One is coming back. Cosworth. Yes, that Cosworth, the British engineering legend that built the greatest F1 engine of all time, is reportedly in talks with the FIA to return to Formula One in 2026. And before you say no way, or that's just a rumor, stick with me because we've got receipts, we've got facts, we've got timelines. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this isn't just possible, it's actually probable. Right now, Formula One has a bit of a problem. Well, not exactly a problem, but let's call it a situation. Currently, we've got 4 power unit manufacturers supplying the entire grid. Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, and starting in 2026, Red Bull Ford. Now, 4 might sound like a decent number, but here's the thing. The FIA is reportedly looking for more diversity. They want either a 12th team on the grid or a new original engine manufacturer to join the party before the massive regulation change in 2026. Why does this matter? Because right now, Formula One is dominated by massive automotive corporations. We're talking about some of the biggest car companies in the world, each spending hundreds of millions on their F1 programs. And while that's brought incredible technology and competition to the sport, it's also created something of a closed ecosystem. The FIA understands that having more engine suppliers, especially independent ones, brings several benefits. First, it increases competition and innovation. Second, it gives teams more options. And third, and this is crucial, it helps control costs because suppliers have to compete for customers. So the governing body has been quietly putting out feelers, asking around, who wants to build F1 engines? And apparently one name keeps coming up in those conversations. A name that any longtime F1 fan will instantly recognize, Cosworth. Now, if you're newer to Formula One, you might be thinking, who's Cosworth? Why does this matter? Well, let me tell you, Cosworth isn't just any engine manufacturer. This company is Formula One history. Let me hit you with some numbers that'll blow your mind. Cosworth engines have won over 170 Grand Prix races. 170. Their engines powered 12 different teams to victory. They dominated F1 from the late 1960s all the way through the 1980s. The crown jewel of their legacy? The Cosworth DFV engine. DFV stands for double 4 valve, and this thing was an absolute masterpiece. Introduced in 1967, it became the most successful naturally aspirated engine in F1 history. It was affordable, it was reliable, and it was incredibly powerful. Here's what made the DFV so special. Before it came along, if you wanted to win an F1, you pretty much had to be a factory team with massive resources. Ferrari, for example, built everything in-house, but the DFV changed the game completely. Smaller teams like Lotus, Tyrrell, Williams, and McLaren could buy a Cosworth DFV engine for a reasonable price, and suddenly they were competitive with the giants. This democratized Formula One in a way we haven't seen since. It created one of the most competitive eras in the sport's history. The DFV won its first race, the 1967 Dutch Grand Prix, with Jim Clark driving for Lotus, and get this, it won its last Grand Prix in 1983, 16 years later. That's incredible longevity in a sport where technology moves at lightning speed. Teams loved the DFV because it was bulletproof. You could run it hard, race after race, and it just kept performing. Engineers loved it because it was designed beautifully with clean lines and smart engineering solutions. And fans? Fans loved the sound. That high-pitched scream of a naturally aspirated V8 revving to the moon became the soundtrack of Formula One. So if Cosworth was so successful, why did they leave? Well, that's a story about how Formula One changed. sometimes not for the better. As we moved into the 21st century, F1 became increasingly expensive. We're talking exponentially more costly. The introduction of more complex electronics, advanced aerodynamics, and eventually hybrid power units created massive barriers to entry. For an independent engine builder like Cosworth, the writing was on the wall. They simply couldn't keep up with the R&D spending of massive automotive manufacturers like Mercedes, Ferrari, and Renault, who were pouring hundreds of millions into their F1 programs. Cosworth's final stint in F1 came in 2013, when they supplied engines to the Marussia and Caterham teams. These were backmarker teams struggling financially, and Cosworth's engines, while reliable, just couldn't match the performance of the top manufacturers. When Formula One switched to the current V6 turbo hybrid power units in 2014, Cosworth didn't follow. The development costs were estimated at over £200 million just to create a competitive hybrid power unit. For an independent company, that was simply impossible. So Cosworth bowed out gracefully, leaving behind an unmatched legacy, the most successful independent engine builder in Formula One history. Now, here's where the Ford connection becomes important, because it explains a lot about both Cosworth's past and its potential future. Cosworth was founded in 1958 by two brilliant engineers, Mike Costin and Keith Duckworth. The name Cosworth actually comes from combining their surnames, Costin and Duckworth. Pretty cool, right? In the mid-1960s, Ford approached Cosworth with an opportunity. Ford wanted to dominate motorsport, and they needed a cutting-edge engine to do it. They backed Cosworth financially to develop what became the legendary DFV. This partnership was golden. Ford got the prestige of winning an F1, and Cosworth got the resources to build incredible engines. It worked so well that Ford eventually bought Cosworth outright in 1998. But then things changed. In the early 2000s, Ford's priorities shifted. They were facing financial difficulties and needed to focus on their core automotive business. Formula One, as cool as it was, didn't align with their new direction toward mass market efficiency and sustainability. So Ford pulled out of F1 in 2004. They sold their Jaguar racing team to Red Bull, and they eventually sold Cosworth too. The legendary engineering firm became privately owned, focusing on other motorsport categories and advanced automotive technology. But here's the fascinating part. Ford and Cosworth never completely severed ties. They maintained a relationship over the years. And now, with Ford officially returning to F1 through their partnership with Red Bull, starting in 2026, that old connection is suddenly very relevant again. Now, you might think that Cosworth has been sitting around for the last decade, getting dusty and outdated. Nothing could be further from the truth. While Cosworth may have left Formula One, they definitely didn't leave motorsport or high-performance engineering. In fact, they've been incredibly busy evolving into something even more relevant for modern racing. Cosworth has been crushing it in IndyCar, where their engines have powered countless victories. They've been involved in the World Endurance Championship, Formula 3, and various other racing series. Their engines are known for one thing above all: reliability and performance. But here's what's really important for our story. Cosworth has been heavily investing in hybrid technology. Through their Hypervolt initiative, they've developed cutting-edge battery management systems, high-efficiency hybrid modules, and advanced electronic control units. Sound familiar? That's because these are exactly the technologies that will be crucial in Formula One's 2026 regulations. Cosworth has basically been preparing for modern F1 without actually being in F1. They've been developing hybrid systems for high-performance road cars and endurance racing that share striking similarities with what F1 needs. In other words, Cosworth isn't the same company that left F1 in 2013. They've evolved, they've adapted, and they've positioned themselves perfectly for F1's hybrid future. This is where everything comes together, folks. The 2026 regulations are a game changer, and they create the perfect conditions for Cosworth's return. First, let's talk about the cost cap for power units. The FIA has introduced a cap estimated at around $130 million per year for engine development. Now, that's still a massive amount of money, but it's a fraction of what manufacturers were spending before. This levels the playing field significantly. The FIA is also reportedly considering additional support for independent engine builders, including shared testing facilities, technical assistance, and collaborative R&D programs. This is huge because it means a company like Cosworth wouldn't be going it alone. But here's the really exciting part. The 2026 power units will be completely different from what we have now. This plays directly into Cosworth's strengths. They're experts in creating efficient, reliable engines. They've been developing hybrid systems for years, and they've always been masters at doing more with less, which is exactly what cost-capped F1 requires. The 2026 regulations essentially remove the barriers that forced Cosworth out in 2014. The sport is returning to a model where smart engineering and efficiency matter more than unlimited budgets. Let's break down why a Cosworth return actually makes sense for everyone involved. For Cosworth, it's a chance to return to the pinnacle of motorsport. Formula One remains the most prestigious racing series in the world. Success in F1 brings credibility, technological advancement, and commercial opportunities that no other series can match. For the FIA, bringing back Cosworth would be a massive win. It diversifies the power unit supply, increases competition, and brings back a legendary name that resonates with longtime fans. It also proves that their new regulations are working by attracting independent manufacturers. For Formula One teams, another engine supplier means more options and potentially better deals. Competition among suppliers drives innovation and can help control costs. And for us fans, come on, how cool would it be to see Cosworth back on the grid? It would connect modern F1 with its golden era in a tangible way. There's also the Ford factor. With Ford returning to F1 through Red Bull, there's potential for collaboration or support. Ford has deep pockets and a vested interest in F1 success. While Cosworth is independent now, that historical connection could be valuable. Some insiders even speculate that Ford might provide technical support or collaboration to Cosworth behind the scenes. It would be a way for Ford to have a broader presence in F1 without the full commitment of running two separate programs. Now let's be real here. A Cosworth return wouldn't be easy, and there are significant challenges to overcome. First, there's still the money issue. Even with cost caps, $130 million per year is a massive investment. Cosworth would need serious backing, whether from investors, partners, or customers. Second, there's the competition. They'd be going up against Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, and Red Bull Ford. These are some of the most advanced engineering organizations in the world, with decades of hybrid experience and unlimited resources outside of the cost cap. Third, there's the complexity of modern F1 power units. These aren't the relatively simple, naturally aspirated V8s of the past. These are incredibly sophisticated pieces of machinery with thousands of parts, millions of lines of code, and tolerances measured in microns. Fourth, Cosworth would need customers. No team is going to switch to an unproven engine, so Cosworth would likely need to partner with a new team entering the grid or convince an existing team to take a chance on them. And finally, there's time. If Cosworth wants to be ready for 2026, they need to start now. Developing a competitive F1 power unit takes years even with all the expertise in the world. So, what's actually happening? Well, here's what we know. The FIA has confirmed they're open to new engine manufacturers and are actively encouraging entries for 2026 and beyond. Cosworth has publicly expressed interest in returning to F1, stating that the new regulations make it feasible for the first time in years. There have been discussions between Cosworth representatives and FIA officials, though nothing has been formally announced. Ford's return to F1 has reignited interest in Cosworth's potential comeback, given their historical connection. Multiple paddock sources suggest that exploratory talks have taken place, though no concrete plans have been revealed. What do you think? Should Cosworth return to F1? Would you be excited to see that legendary name back on the grid? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you're subscribed because we've got more F1 content coming your way.